Okay, so if you have been trying to figure out how to add those really aesthetic borders around all of your images on your Squarespace website, then this video is for you. If you're new here, my name is Haley. I am a Squarespace website designer and brand designer that helps small business owners create a strong online presence. I love creating videos with Squarespace tutorials, website tips, small business tips, branding tips, and way more. So if you like that kind of content, please subscribe below. I would love to have you follow along, but let's hop into this video. Okay, so there is this trend going around with adding really cool borders to your Squarespace website sections and around your images. And if you want to add these really cool borders to your Squarespace website sections, I actually have a video for that. I will link for you guys above and in the description for you to watch. But right now we're focusing on images. So a really cool way to add some dimension to images on your site is to add a border around them. But this is something that you can't natively do in Squarespace, so there's a little bit of code that I'm going to show you how to easily do that. I'm going to demonstrate this in both Squarespace 7.1 Fluid Engine, Squarespace 7.1 Classic Editor, and Squarespace 7.0 Editor, so we can hop into that right now. Hey y'all, okay, so let's jump right into the tutorial. Before we get started, I have one thing that I need you to install to your Chrome browser, and it is called the Squarespace ID Finder plugin. I'm going to show that here on the screen. It is super helpful, and this is going to help you easily find the IDs for your images, which basically helps you add this custom code to them that I will be sharing. So there's another way that you can find these IDs that is a lot harder, especially if you're not used to code. So I would recommend installing this to your Chrome. It's super easy and very helpful for your website. So let's jump in first to the Squarespace 7.1 Fluid Engine way of doing things. So I'm going to jump into Design and head down to the Custom CSS tab to show you guys how to do this. Now, one thing that I do want to add is, unfortunately, at this time, the only way to add borders to your images in the Squarespace 7.1 Fluid Engine editor is if your images are set with the fill attribute. And let me show you that. If I go into Edit, click the image and edit it, go over to the Design tab, you can see I have this fill attribute set. If I have the fit attribute set, basically what happens when you try to add borders is it's going to add a border around this blue box, or if you target something different, it only has a border on part of the image. So unfortunately, that's something that is not possible in Squarespace right now. So you want to make sure that your image attribute is set to fill. It also will not work on shape. That's another thing that won't work with any code. So again, only fill is going to work. So I'm going to go ahead and click Done. Now the next thing that I'm going to do is turn on my ID Finder extension. So here we go. As you can see, here's all of these IDs, and what you're going to do is literally just click and it's going to copy the ID for you. Then you're going to come over to your CSS section and you are going to paste that in here, and you're going to replace that block ID that I have in the code below in the description. So you can grab that, make sure you grab the 7.1 Fluid Engine one right here. And as you can see, we have already added that border around your image. So if you want to play around with the color of the border, with the size of it, all you have to do is come down here. To change the thickness of the border, just change that number around to however thick you want that border to be. And to change the color, you're just going to change this hex code to whatever hex code you want. That changed it to white. Obviously, you can't see that. So I'm going to change it back to black for you guys. All right, so that is Squarespace Fluid Engine. Now, there is a way that you can do it if you create angles on your filled image. So if I go down here and click Edit, just want to show you guys the settings for this. I'm going to go to the Design. All right, so I have it set on Fill, and I have a corner radius of 40. So you are going to do that same method where you turn on your plugin, copy it, and paste it. As you can see, I've already pasted it here, but you're going to grab that code with the angles. And here is that first line. It's the same where we're adding that border. And then this border radius line is going to create those angles for you. Now, this number is going to be a tad bit different than the number that you put in for your image. And the reason that is, I'm not really sure, but you're going to kind of have to play around with it. So if you remember, I set it, the border radius on the image as 40. So I just kind of had to play around until I found a border that looked good, and 42, everything kind of snapped into place. So it seems like it's just 1 or 2 pixels off. So that's how you can play around with the border radius. Now I'm going to go down and show you how you can do the classic editor. So the code is a little bit different, but it's the same exact method. So you're going to come down to your classic editor section, and you are going to, again, copy your image block ID and paste it in here and replace that block ID. Awesome, this one was already there. And the only thing I want you to notice is there is this other identifier here, Squarespace image-shape-container-element, that you want to make sure remains there. Everything else is the same. You can tweak your border width by changing this number here to make it thicker or thinner, and you can change the color here by changing the hex code to whatever you want. That changed it to white and you can't see it. Perfect. Okay, so for Squarespace 7.0, the method is exactly the same as 7.1 Classic Editor. So you're going to take the code below in the description and paste it into your CSS. Then you're going to want to take the image ID and replace it in your CSS here. Make sure you add a space. You're going to see this Squarespace image shape container element. You don't want to touch that. That is helping identify your image. And then down here is that border. So if you want to change the thickness of the border, you'll just change it here. If you want to change the color of the border, you're going to change it down here and change it to whatever color. Again, that's white. You're not going to see that. But that is how you add borders to your images. If you do have multiple images that you want to add borders to, you don't have to keep copying this line over and over again. All you have to do is copy that new images ID, click to the end of the previous image ID, put a comma, and then paste in your new image ID. And that will also add the border to it. And you can do that as many times as you want. Just keep adding commas after each of those image IDs. So super simple. Again, you just copy that code that's pasted below depending on what editor you have for your website, and you've got borders for your images. And that is it. Super, super easy. So I hope this video helped you out. If you're interested, again, in more Squarespace tutorials, website tips, branding tips, or more, I would love to have you follow along and subscribe. But thank you so much for watching.